Hey YouTube, this is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and we are back with another mock draft video to help you guys out with your upcoming drafts for this fantasy football season. Again, we are about midway through July, inching closer and closer to that NFL season, so this is exciting news. So let's jump right into it. All right, so if you guys have been watching the series, we are now in the fourth spot of a 12-team mock draft. Now, of course, this is full PPR. This is going to be more of a standard league as far as roster build. If there are other types of formats, please let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to help you guys out, whether it be 2 quarterbacks, super flex, premium tight end, whatever it may be. I'd love to give you guys some idea. Now, of course, these mock drafts are going to be a little bit different. They're going to change quite a bit throughout the season as far as the offseason goes because players' rankings change. Sleepers rankings change, Yahoo. So again, I encourage doing as many mock drafts to get you ready. So let's kind of go into this one in the fourth spot. Now, the fourth spot's kind of a tricky one. Most likely in the fourth spot, you're probably going to go wide receiver just because if you go running back, you're kind of reaching. Now, again, I am a big fan and proponent of the running back position, at least in the first 2 rounds. It's hard sometimes when you don't want to pass up a really premier receiver as well or reach too far. Now, in my previous video, I went and grabbed Christian McCaffrey. In this mock draft, you see Christian McCaffrey go a little early again. I do believe in him, especially if he's healthy. He's one of the top, 3 to 4 running backs when it comes to fantasy football. So with that said, though, in the fourth spot, I just can't reach and grab like a Jonathan Taylor or a James Cook. And in this point, I'm going to go grab wide receiver. So I'll grab Jamar Chase here. And again, in the second round is kind of where I want to get that running back. Now, you could get a second running back in the third. That's kind of the strategy I would go with this. You get the wide receiver in the first if you have to in that first part. Get your running back in the second and get another running back in the third. But at least you got one of your premier receivers. Now, looking at it, again, you're going to see a huge mixture of that. You might see a tight end here or there. Those are probably teammates or league mates that you probably have that maybe don't know ball necessarily. Or, of course, if it's tight end premium, well, that's a whole nother strategy. With that said, you do see some of the tight ends being up there, like a Trey McBride, Brock Bowers. Those tight ends are top tier. They're hard to get really anywhere else besides like the second to third round. I will rather get my top receiver, running back, things like that, and then get a tight end later and still have a better overall team. Now, looking at the options here, you've got a player like Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs at the running back position. And, of course, you can always go wide receiver again. I'm not going to necessarily grab the tight end. I am going to grab a running back. I'm not going to grab Chase Brown. I'm going to go with the old reliable and Derrick Henry. It's a risk, yes, with his age, but I don't mind taking him there because, again, I feel really good about having a solid running back there as my RB1. Now, in this strategy, I can go running back again. You got Bucky Irving, Kyrie Williams, Breece Hall. That is the strategy I will typically go with. There's nothing wrong with going like A.J. Brown here either. That's a really good option because you got a wide receiver 1. I know, in my opinion, he's a wide receiver 1, especially in this Patriots offense. Paired with another wide receiver 1 in Jamar Chase, that's phenomenal. Maybe you go running back in the 4th round. For me, I still think the running back position is such a hard position to really go after that is top tier. Like a lot of running backs, you probably have like 5 or 6 running backs that are amazing, and the rest are kind of can be a low RB1, high RB2 for the rest of that. So looking at the options here, Kyron Williams, Breece Hall, Bucky Irving, as far as my running back options go, of those 3, Breece Hall is probably my, I would say, safest bet. Kyron Williams, great. I still got to deal with Blake Corum. Bucky Irving, hopefully he's back from injury. He looks really good. He doesn't have a shot white, which is a good thing to see, but I still think Breece Hall is a better option. Now, they start to see some of the quarterbacks, right? Josh Allen's, your Lamar Jackson's, your Jaden Daniels, things like that. You're going to see those type of positions happen because that rushing quarterback has extra value. For me, I'm going to go and get my quarterback later on. If you guys have watched this, there's certain quarterbacks I do try to grab in the 7th, 8th, 9th round. So I'm going to go fill out the rest of my roster. And with that said, I'm going to get Devonta Smith, a wide receiver 1. Yes, for the Eagles. Even if you disagree, he's still the wide receiver 1, and I think he has potential there. Paired up with Jamar Chase. Feel really good about him. Now I can start looking at maybe I want to grab a tight end. Maybe I want to start filling some of my backup. Quinton Judkins is a good one. Jameson Williams is a good one. Things like that. So those are some really good options there. Now, what I really like here is you could go different ways, right? Now, I like the options of getting maybe a possible third running back, right? You kind of feel those bye weeks, maybe an injury, things like that. So I'm actually going to go and grab Judkins here. I think this is a nice little play to put into the roster. Because again, I don't necessarily have to rely on him. He could be a next flex play based off matchup. He can fill in bye weeks. And I like having a strong third running back compared to a receiver because there's so many great receivers in fantasy football and in the league itself. So now again, you're starting to see the tight ends start to go, right? You see Warren, Fan, and Kraft. So a lot of those tight ends are going to start to squeak in there. I'm going to try to hold off and get my tight end around the 7th or 8th round. We'll see how that plays out because I have a couple people I'm really interested in. I'm actually going to grab Brian Thomas here. I think Brian Thomas is going to have some success. I know they got Parker Washington. I know they've got Jacoby Myers. I know there's a lot of options for Trevor Lawrence, but I think Brian Thomas is done with the sophomore slump. I think he's going to have a really good season this year, and I really look forward to that. Now, I am going to get the tight end that I really wanted, which is Kyle Pitts. I love that he fell there for me. Again, some of those tight ends, before him, obviously really good options. Kyle Pitts did get that nice little contract extension. I do think he's a good option. And I don't have to overpay for him, right? Because sometimes you do overpay for some of these tight ends. I am not going to go that route. Now you're going to start seeing some of the rest of the quarterbacks go. Now, of course, if you guys have been watching this channel for a while and it's not because of my fandom, I'm going to get Dak Prescott in the 8th round. I feel really good about getting him in the 8th round because he tends to fall as like QB 10, 11, 12. And honestly, with the way he performs, he's usually a top 5 quarterback in fantasy, give or take, right? And so, yeah, injuries happen, things like that. But 2 premier receivers, you've got a good running back in Javonte Williams, another second year in this offense. I feel really good about Dak Prescott this year. I don't mind taking him in the 8th round. I'd rather pick him over some of these other quarterbacks you start to see, like, Dart, Trevor Lawrence, you'll start to see there. I mean, Caleb Williams could possibly be up there, but some of these quarterbacks, let me go get my boy Dak Prescott. So I've got most of my roster filled, right? I got kind of the starting lineup. And so now I've got to fill my depth. I do not get kicker and defense until later on. You guys have seen that. So now it's all about depth. Now, this is where you can draft best available player, or you can reach a little bit on players that you really feel really good about, right? Players that you feel are going to have some type of, upcoming, maybe it's a second-year running back or a second-year receiver that you just feel really good about. Or maybe you grab some depth. Maybe I'm one other quarterback. Not necessarily a strategy I go with, or maybe another tight end. Again, a strategy I kind of avoid. In this one, I like a couple options. Rondo Robinson is probably one I like. I don't talk about him enough, but I think in this offense, he did really good for the Giants. Another option for, Cam Ward. Yes, they still have a lot of receivers out there, right? But I do think Rondo's veteran ability and his ability to play in the slot, be quick, kind of be that open guy, that first down type of player. I like him in this offense. Again, not having to stretch and grab him, I feel really good about. Looking at the rest of these guys, right? So you got a lot of tight ends available. Nothing wrong with that. You'll start to see some of the backup running backs or the handcuff running backs, if you want to say that. And then some of the quarterbacks. Now, looking at these, Brian Robinson is not a bad pickup for, Bijan, but I don't have Bijan, so I'm not going to go and grab him. He's not a handcuff for me. You could get Zach Charbonnet, but my worry with his injury is he's probably going to be more of top, probably in a month or so into the season before you see him. So price is probably a better option if you can get him. Now, granted, he's probably taken a lot earlier, but if you can get Price, that's probably the guy I want to get. And then you look at some of these other guys. Rachaad White's a good one, right? Good possible RB1, 2, in that Commanders offense. Jordan Mason, for the Vikings. You got some really good options. I like Jordan Mason. I know Aaron Jones is there, but I like Jordan Mason a lot. They liked him last season for Minnesota, so I'm going to go and pick him up. And then I've got 3 more bench spots, and then again, I've got the kickers and defense. Now, all these options here, it's going to be a little bit tighter. I like Xavier Worthy, Matthew Golden, Shakir, some really good options. I don't want to have too many receivers, but there's nothing wrong with too many receivers. And looking at the options here, I'm actually going to take the risk of Matthew Golden. I think in the second-year offense, there's a possibility of him having a better rapport with Jordan Love. It's another year for him behind the belt. They obviously drafted him high. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be amazing, right? You've seen plenty of busts in the NFL, but I do think that's a nice little risk to take. So 2 more bench spots. Tight end is a possibility, right? Dalton Schultz is a nice little backup to Kyle Pitts. Don't mind that pickup. Maybe Tyler Shugg, as far as a backup quarterback, like that move a lot. I'm actually going to go and grab a backup tight end. Not a huge fan of it necessarily, but in this case, it makes sense. Build a nice little depth piece behind him. And then I'm going to go and grab, another player behind. I'm not going to get the second quarterback. I know a lot of people love to do that, but I'm actually going to go and grab Alvin Kamara. I do think, yes, I understand that they're kind of aging him out. They did, keep him there for the Saints. I know they got ETN, but I do think Kamara is going to have some type of value. He's going to be a good receiving. I think because he's not going to have to touch the ball a million times, only helps him out. Now I've got to get my defense and my kicker, right? So defensive wise, you've got some really good options. You got the Patriots, you got the Eagles, right? Some really good options. You got the Texans, so 49ers, Seattle. I mean, there's a lot of amazing options. I'm going to grab Seattle's here. Because I do think their defense has been phenomenal and they're going to continue that. And then I'm going to grab my kicker. And like I mentioned before, yes, sleeper stinks when it comes to kickers. So you kind of have to type it in if you're going to do any type of mock draft. I'm going to get my boy Brennan Aubrey. Really good option. One of the best kickers in the game. And I'm going to pick him there. So again, sleeper's a little funky, but that's where it is. So that is our 104 spot. So let's talk about it. All right. So that was the fourth pick of a 12-team league in a full PPR edition. Now, of course, with that said, things are going to change. Do these mock drafts often. Let me know in the comments if you felt like that was a good draft. Maybe I reached a little bit. Maybe you thought this was, some players that I probably should have gone after. Again, this is an idea of where they're going. This is to help you guys kind of figure out and get a strategy going so you are ready when you start doing your drafts, probably in August to the end of August. Hope you guys have a great draft season. Have a great NFL fantasy season. And we'll be seeing you guys all season. Make sure you guys subscribe, like, and I'll see you guys next time.